This is the DPN Rover car collection, and we're working on our maroon 75 1.8, and after a little short journey when we got home we noticed that the brake had got hot on the back passenger wheel, and you could smell it as well. Some of that is where we paint them, so in some ways that walls. And also we noticed that it was, as we say, getting very, very warm. So what we're going to do is sit down and see exactly what needs doing, and whether it is the piston or anything else. I just thought I'd show you just how much stiffer the wheel is this side. As you can see, it takes quite a bit of force to turn it, and you can hear it binding or catching. So although it turns, it's certainly binding, and when you go over to the other side, which I'll show you in a minute, it moves a lot easier. So that's kind of confirmed it. So yeah, it was definitely getting hot. As you can see, there's quite a bit of brake dust in the wheels. You can even see it laying there. And normally some wheels can look this dirty, but we'd recently completely cleaned them all, and the others are clean, and this is covered in a brake dust dirt, like it's done lots and lots of miles. So it was probably catching more than we first thought. And if we come over to the brake itself, hope you can see there our paint has started to all begin to burn off, and the disc clearly looks like it's got quite hot. So it definitely was seizing on. Now all we've got to do is start to take the bits, find out why, and see whether we need to do a sort of caliper rebuild like we've done in the past. Right, and that's the little cap removed. And I thought I'd show this, as this is something you want to do before you disconnect all the brakes. If you are going to be removing the hub nut, we're removing it because we want to remove this back plate and paint it. We're doing like a full refurbishment, and we're getting everything painted. So if you are removing the hub nut, it's well worth remembering that before you sort of get involved in removing the brakes, and then find it a lot more difficult to do this job. So you just got to take that little sort of tang that's bent in on the hub nut back out, so the hub nut will come off, and of course that's done just so it couldn't undo over time with vibration and usage. Once that's bent out, then what we do is go in, put a foot on the brake, and that make sure that's locked enough so we can get the initial tightness off of the hub nut. Right, ready? So another reason for having the brake still connected is when you're undoing this little screw, and technically with the back you don't necessarily need the brakes on to do that, but you certainly do with the front, so it's always good practice to just do it like that. And this only has the one little screw there. Some do have two, but not on these. So now that's all off, then we can get on with the normal job that we wanted to. So that's better. You can see a little bit better with a little bit more light. We're just going to take out that kind of spring clip on the caliper. So yeah, as you see, we've got that spring clip off there on the caliper, and I just thought I'd let you have a little look at the brake in a little bit more detail, because this is quite an interesting brake, as your main foot brake is the caliper, but your handbrake is a little drum brake here, so it's almost two brakes in one. Quite interesting. We'll let you see a little bit more of that as we begin to take it apart. Obviously the first thing we've got to do is remove the caliper, so that's what we'll be doing next. Right, so that's the two bolts out, the slider bolts, and we've now got
you
that
can
out.
see that it's a caliper that's freezing because the wheel's gone free.
Yeah, so that's another way, as you've seen there, as we just said, it's definitely confirmed that it's not the handbrake, which is a good thing. It was the caliper that's been holding it on. So I'll just give you a little better look, and you can see the bracket that the caliper fits to, and you can see there where the 2 sliding bolts went. The sliding bolts came out too easy for them to be seized, so we think it probably is the piston. And as you see, and we said, the brake, the disc now turns too easily for it to be the little handbrake shoes inside. And as we said, when we change all the disc, we'll show you all of that as well, because that's probably what we will do, is change the discs, the brake shoes, and put the new kit in, a bit like we've done before. But yeah, I thought I'd just give you a little look, and you can see there the brake part, which we'll be removing, so we can do it all on the bench. And it's not the normal sort of fittings, you've got to wind it out with that fitting there. And again, we'll show you a little bit more of that once we've got it all inside. Right, so that gives you a better view of the caliper up on our bench, and you can hopefully see in there just how hot it's got, more or less burning the piston, and it looks like it's even possibly started to melt the seal, and they're certainly rusty and need doing. You can see where they're meant to slide. That surface is not great. Obviously, they really do need a good clean up, which is what we'd normally do anyway, and completely resurfacing. So yeah, even the shoes, you can see there, are almost sort of joint to it, seized on. So yeah, they really weren't good.
Oh my God, look at the state of that.
Well, yeah, what we've decided to do, as the piston is so jammed in, we've just pulled the rubber seal off with a pair of pliers, and what we're going to do is put some WD around here and in the hole the brake fluid normally does, and then we'll try getting out with compressed air tomorrow and hope that WD will soak in and make it easier to get out. But again, it definitely means we diagnosed the fault that we thought it was, and it wasn't the handbrake brake shoes either.
As long as you only put the grips on that rusty bit.
Oh, and that's it out. So what I thought I'd explain, what we did once we put the WD in, we thought we'd see whether it would move, and it actually started to lever out, as you see, and because it was so seized in, we didn't even know if the compressed air would definitely work, so we decided to slowly lever it out, and then, as you see, pull it out with those sort of nice grip pliers. And the reason we could do that, or attempted to do it, is because we are changing the piston, so it didn't matter if we damaged that piston. Obviously you wouldn't be doing that if you were only changing the seal kit, but we are putting in a new piston as well. But you can see there all the rust on that piston, and just how sort of grotty it was. So yeah, we thought in the end that was the best way to get it out, and it worked. And it also proves that you could do it without the compressed air, because the difference with this one is that the brake fluid goes in on the side and not on the end, because sometimes when the fluid goes on the end, you can use something from in there and push it out, which you couldn't do with this, so you're only left with compressed air or getting it out how we did. So we decided, because it was so rusty, we'd give that a go, and that lets us know in the future that there are alternatives to blowing it out with compressed air. Right, so what we've done is wire brush the caliper off, and then what we always do is paint it with the rust killer. That gets rid of any sort of rust that's left, and we find also becomes almost like an undercoat for the red paint we put on. What we do next though is probably home out the cylinder and fit all the new seal kit, and then go on to paint it in red so that we don't mark any of the red paint fitting the new seal kit and cylinder. And what I'm going to do this time is follow both sides, because we always do both sides. So we'll show some little bits of this one and some different bits when we're doing the other side. So that's where we are at the moment. And what we've also done, as we always do, is wire brush the carrier bracket as well, and again we'll treat that with a rust killer and then go on to paint it. Right, so we're going to hone the caliper out, but as you see there, we had to remove the old seal first, and then we'll do that. With this top, because the seal is in the caliper and it's the piston that moves up and down, the honing is not so crucial as on somewhere the seal would be on the piston and it's rubbing up and down that surface, but we still like to do it, and that's why we also like to get a new piston, because it is the piston surface that will be moving up and down on that rubber seal. So when we get the kit, we do like to get the piston that comes with it. So as you see there, we were honing it out. Now that's done, we'll be ready to start putting the new seal kit back in, and then of course the new piston as well, and that gives you a little look inside. You see it's now looking nice and clean, and what we did is use some WD in there while we were doing it. Right, so here's the kit we've bought. We normally buy the big red, as we found that's worked really well. You've probably seen us use that in other videos, and it arrives on time. We're getting it online through eBay. It's the kit for both sides, as we always normally will do both sides, and you'll get all the rubber seals and the grease you need, and they also provide you with the two pistons that are there together. So yeah, as always, a nice little complete sort of refurbishment seal kit and piston. So I just thought I'd show that before we open it all and start to fit it. Right, so what we're doing is putting the silicone grease in there that comes with the kit, and then we'll be putting the little rubber seal in there, the new one that comes with the kit, and that goes in the sort of lower groove, and the upper groove is where the dust secondary seal goes into. Normally this seal's a lot easier to get in. It's normally the sort of dust secondary seal that you tend to struggle with. Right, so there's the new piston. As you can see, a lot better than the old piston, even though that's sort of been wiped off and cleaned off a little bit from how it came out. So it's a case of getting it all ready now with this rubber seal and getting it in. Right, so now what we're going to do is get this piston to fit, and basically what you have to do is get that little sort of rib into that groove in the caliper that I showed you, and then as you push it down, then this seal will raise up and then go into this lip here, and if it all goes right, it's then sealed to the caliper and the piston. Right, so that's it done and in, and as always it really is a struggle, and we always try and think of a better way of doing it, but never seem to come up with one. But these back ones seem to be harder than the front calipers to do. The seal just doesn't seem to want to go in. We've done it now, but it really was a struggle. So now we're at the point of painting it, and that's what we'll be doing next. Right, so before we paint all that caliper, now we've done or replaced the seal kit, what we also want to do is of course paint all the back plate and change the handbrake, because that's what's quite different about this. The handbrake has got a separate little set of shoes in the drum, and what we want to do is take all the disc off and replace those shoes and put a new disc back on with that part of the drum brake. As I say, clean up all the back plate and paint that as well. And what we've also got to do is get the carrier off for the caliper, and that's what we're going to do next. That will then allow us to get the disc off. So removing the carrier at the moment, bit of a job to get there and show you it, but it's two bolts holding that on, and once we take it away I'll try and give you a little bit of a better look. And that's the carrier away, and the bolt then, as we always do, we're putting everything in a little tray there. If I bring the light over, hopefully you can see the carrier there, and you can see the 2 holes where the bolts go to hold that on. Right, so now we've got that carrier off, it makes it accessible to get the disc and the drum combined in. But what you might find is if the brake shoes are adjusted out, this is not going to come off very easy. You can see it's quite stuck on, and what these have got is a little adjuster, and what you're looking for is you have to find it by looking through one of the holes where your wheel nuts go, and the spring normally runs across here, your top spring. They're a set of shoes like a normal brake set of shoes, brake drum shoes, only a lot smaller. And what you do is look for this little hole and try and line up. You can see a little tiny wheel with teeth, and you have to wind that along until the shoes get put like on their minimum adjustment, and then this should come off. So that's what we've got to do. Again, very awkward to film in there, but I'll show you once it comes off. So as I said, it's a job to see, but you can just kind of see through that hole there. There's a little bit of a spring, and to the side of that is that little cog we're going to turn to wind the shoes back so we can get the disc drum away.
Yeah. That's it, right, Lee? Yeah?
Yeah. Yes, after a lot more winding, it's retracted those shoes, so we can now release that disc. And what we're going to do now is just take the hub off, and that'll give you hopefully a little bit more of a better view. Remembering we took the hub nut off, and also that little screw that holds the disc on earlier on while all the brakes were still connected. So yeah, now you can see that little wheel there that we were there it is, there, little wheel that we were just gently turning round, and we wound it right in, so those shoes retracted in, and you can see there how it turns just a little bit. It's sitting right above the springs, so a bit of a fiddly job, and also quite difficult to find. But when you know where it is, it's a lot easier to find when you're looking through that hole. And both sides you wind it down to bring the shoes in so you can get that disc off, and then when you're readjusting you'll be winding it up, and hopefully again we'll show you that when we put it all back together. So now it's time to remove those shoes, and also then go on to remove the back plate. Right, so like many shoes in a drum brake, they're held on with the 2 little pins with a bit of spring, and hopefully you can see there.
Piece that goes through the back plate.
Yeah, and locks it on. So that's very similar to a lot of drum brakes. They often do it slightly different ways, but very, very similar. Yeah, and this is something when we first got our 75, we hadn't quite realised this is how it was done, although we quite like the way that this is done, having a separate little drum brake for your handbrake and your disc brakes for your main foot brake. It keeps them separate, because on the 45s it's all in one, and actually we quite like this system. What we've also been doing is photographing this, because it's well worth doing that. And as I've been saying all along, although we're only showing you the passenger side, we're doing the driver side at the back exactly the same, and we took photos of both sides, because it's surprising when you come back to do it, or even when it all comes off in bits, so you forget exactly the way things were. Especially
take particular notice of this.
Yeah, especially this mechanism here, and also your winding adjusting mechanism, which way that goes round and how the springs. We've got it on video, but it's always good to quickly look at a photograph rather than trying to sort of rewind and fast forward through a video to confirm that's how the layout is. And it's always worth checking in a manual as well, because you never know, whoever did this last might have done something wrong, even though it's still working. But to have those photos really does make it visually right, and once you check that is the way it should be, perhaps from a manual, then you can use those photos as a real visual reference. Right, so once those holding pins are out, as you can see, it's a case of pulling it away, and as you pull it away it does kind of come to bits, and what we've been left with is this mechanism hooked onto the handbrake cable, and hopefully if I bring the light around you can see how the handbrake cable hooks into that. And again, it's well worth photographing that, as we said, to make sure you get that back the right way, as it just will not necessarily work properly.
Right, now this, yeah, right, that comes out there like that. Important to get that round the right way. Now we're going to undo those bolts, and the handbrake will then come out from the other side like that, and the back plate will come off.
Right, so as you see there, we just pulled the handbrake cable back, and what holds this back plate on is these 4 bolts there, and generally in not too bad a condition, but we certainly want to paint it up and get rid of all that rust so it doesn't rust away like it has on some of our other cars, and then it needs replacing.
Oh God, come on, it's tight. This one is tight.
So now it's just a case of getting these 4 bolts out. They often seem to be quite tight, so it's just a case of getting them out, so we're going to get on with that. Right, so that's all those 4 bolts out. Hopefully now you can see the little slots there where these little pins go that held the brake shoes on as well, and it should now just come away, just checking that the handbrake cable doesn't get caught up in it, and that's it away. And you've also got the little key slots, you know exactly where this one goes, you can't get them mixed up from side to side. So that is it all away now, just leaving the handbrake cable there, and it goes right through, and as you can see comes out the other side. And now it's going to be a case of cleaning everything up and getting it ready to paint, and then the reassembling of it. Right, so while we've got the opportunity to have everything off, we're going to clean up that bit of rusty surface, just give a check round the wheel arch as well, and give it a little clean up, and treat any sort of rusty areas as well that you can't normally get to. So as you can see, we've got the bits from both sides, all the brakes and all the parts we've took off, and we keep them completely separate in each tray. Some of the bits we're going to clean up, and then as you can see there on our trolley, we've got the new parts that we're going to be fitting. I'll be going through them in more detail as we do that. And of course we've got the calipers with the new seal kits already in. All we need to do is paint them up. We'll still put them back down in their original tray, so everything stays together for the right side of each wheel on the car. Right, so now we've finished cleaning it, all we're going to do now is put some rust killer on it. That'll stop the rust getting any worse while it's out, and then what we do is then paint it, and this acts like an undercoat we find for the paint, and really works what it is, letting us get into all in there, which we couldn't do with the back plate on. So it's an ideal chance while we're doing this just to deal with all that. And as always, we're using the rust killer that comes out like sort of a cream, and then when it dries goes to a purple, and it's really good stuff we find, and will hold back rust as well. If there's something you can't get to straight away, we always find it's worth putting that on. That'll hold it back until a time when you can deal with it properly, and in this case we're using it to kill any rust, but also acts as almost like an undercoat for the metal paint we use. So as I said, we're changing a lot of the brake components, and one of the things we're changing are these discs and drums. These are the new ones. It appears they've got some sort of coating on here, not on the actual disc itself. All we do is give them a wipe over and panel wipe, and then paint them as we always normally do. As always, we use the Halford's red brake paint, because we find that just seems to get the nice colour. We've tried others, but that seems to get that nice red that we like. There's the other one. You can see inside the area where the handbrake goes, and down here of course are the old ones, which as you can see, have got quite bad and quite a bit of wear on them. You can see there where the drum brake is, just how worn that is, and the lip. So they certainly need changing. And you can see there we paint them red. So that's what we'll be doing to them. Of course, we've compared them to check that they are the same, and we've got the right ones sent to us. So that'll be the next stage, is getting them painted. And what we will do is then we're going to sort through this, and all the bits that we're replacing we'll remove from there and put in a separate tray. And we'll keep them to the end of the job, just in case there was any problems with any parts, or so we can compare the parts we've got before we dispose of them. Right, so that's the first disc drum painted with its first coat. Of course, we've got the other one still to do. We normally give them 2 coats, and of course we've got all the other little bits to paint, as well as the refurbished calipers that we've put all the new seal kit and pistons in. Right, so we're just cleaning up the back brake sort of protector plates. They're actually marked up, which is quite nice, as right and the other one left. What we do at the moment is just degreasing it before we wire brush it. Then we go on to rust treat it, and then finally paint it to try and preserve it, because actually they're not in bad condition. They're starting to rust a little bit on the edges, but compared to some we've seen, they're pretty good. So this will then stop them ever getting any worse. We'll make them look a little bit tidier as well. Right, so now we've got the back plates cleaned up and wire brushed all that rust and dirt that was on them. What we're going to do is paint them with firstly a hammerite sort of rust beater. As you can see, it's just in the corner of the screen there, and let that treat any of the rust before we put our final coat on. And we always like to do that, whether it's the rust stuff that we put on like the calipers and other stuff, and on these we decided to use that, but we always use something, or a red oxide, just as really sort of an undercoat, a rust killer, and a protector as well. Right, so we're continuing to clean and paint at the moment, and what we're doing now is cleaning up some of the little handbrake mechanisms and some of the other bits that we're going to reuse that we haven't got replacements for. So we're also cleaning the little adjuster as well. Right, so as you can see, we've got some more bits ready to paint. We've got the caliper, that's got the Vactan rust stuff on it, and I've got that all masked up, the bits we don't want any paint on. Of course, we then got the back plate, the carrier, the hub, and that little cap, all in the hammerite rust paint, all ready for us to paint with our red brake caliper paint. If we come down here, we've got the discs now all painted, so they've had 2 coats of the red brake paint. So now it's time to get on with these next bits as we continue to clean and then paint all the bits that need doing. Right, so we're now getting the black painter on the areas that we couldn't really properly get to when that brake shield was on, so it's giving us that opportunity, as I said before, to do that, and we're doing that in line with painting all the other bits, so it will all be done ready for reassembling. Right, so that's everything now with its second coat of paint, and what we're doing is, once it's dried, is we're putting all the stuff from the passenger side on this top shelf, and then all the stuff from the driver side on the bottom shelf, ready for when we come to reinstall it. And this stuff here up on the top's just been painted with its second coat, so that'll be dried, and then it can come down and go on the passenger side stuff on our shelf there. So we've got all our new bits and refurbished bits now laid out, ready to fit. And what I've done is just done both sides, we've got one side and the other, and I've tried to turn them round, you'll see, in sort of both sides of all the parts. Of course, we changed the seal kit and piston on the caliper, and then we've painted it all up. They've also painted up the hubs that we took off, so that we could take off the back plates and get them painted and rust treated. And of course we've done that there on both sides. New discs and drums for the handbrake, both painted. We've got new shoes for the handbrake and the disc brakes as well at the back. We've also got a completely new spring kit there as well. We've got the new wire that's come with part of this kit, so we've changed that as well, the wear down wire, and of course we've got all the new rubber bits as well. We've got two new hub nuts also. I think that's roughly about everything. What we've done here is we've got all the bits, all the bolts and adjusters there now all cleaned up, and again we've got them for both sides as well. As always, we're only showing you one side in detail, but I thought I'd show you all this, how we lay it out all before we do it. So you've got there the handbrake mechanism, the little adjuster, the bolts, the pins there all cleaned up and ready to fit. And what we've also done, just to show you, is we've kept all the old bits that we're not planning to use, just so we've got some sort of a reference, or we want to check it before we throw all them away. And also what we've done is enlarged some of the pictures of the inside of the handbrake, and that's just so again we've got a little reference to look how it went together, because that is quite a useful thing to have for you to have a look at and reference back to, and it's a nice visual picture rather than trying to work from the manual. So as you see, we've got all the bits ready and cleaned for both sides. As I said, we're going to mainly show you the passenger side as we've been doing, and perhaps I'll show you little bits of the driver's side just to show we're doing the both sides together. The first thing we're going to do on this side is put the back plate back, but we did remove the handbrake cable there out the way so we could paint all this. So we will have to put that back through, and it comes out here and then goes through the back of the plate we've painted. So that's what we're going to start off with. So we're just making sure no rust has built up there, and we'll also make sure the ABS sensor is clear as well. And as you can see, we've got all our bits there ready in our tray. I've got a photograph of the layout of the brakes before, and we're working from the Haynes manual. We've also got the export this on our computer for more detailed stuff, and we always think it's important to have a manual, even no matter how many times you've done the job, to check the specifications and make sure that the procedure you're using is as it should be. And as I say, having that picture I think really does help you visualise how it all goes back. So we've got the shield all ready, and it's held in by these 4 bolts you can see there, and they've got like an Allen key fitting on them. We're putting a little bit of Loctite on them just before we put them in. So we just got that lined up. Of course, you've got the hole at the bottom for the handbrake and the 4 bolt holes to attach it. Right, so what we're doing there is just putting a little bit of silicone grease on the cable just to make sure, hope it doesn't seize, and then we're then poking through from the back and it'll come out this hole here. Right, so that's the cable through. As you can see, a little bit fiddly to get through because you're technically coming through quite a thick space there, but again, it's something that we only removed because we were painting everything up. Normally you probably wouldn't necessarily need to remove that, but I thought we'd cover it because that's what we've done as part of it. The next bit to put on is the handbrake mechanism. We've cleaned all that up, hopefully, as you see earlier on, and now we're just putting a bit of the silicone grease that comes with the brake kit we bought, just to make sure that hopefully doesn't seize up. Right, so hopefully you can see there we've then hooked that mechanism on with those little hooks, and then you close it back up, and that should sit there hopefully while you're doing the rest of the job. Obviously it will fall off if you knock it, so it is a little bit fiddly at first, and as I said, we're following our original picture to make sure you get it the right way round, because it's very easy to put that on in reverse, and you won't necessarily initially notice it's wrong, but it isn't going to work properly if it does go on the wrong way. So I'll just zoom out there so you can see where it's sitting. Right, so we've got the new shoes there, and we've laid them out actually following the picture, so it sort of really helps you to visualise it. We're going to put one on first, and they use a fairly standard system, which is these little pins that push through. There's a little spring that goes on the pin. I'll show you that there. And what they've got, actually, it's quite nice to use. They've got like an Allen key slot that you can use to put them in, so you don't have to struggle so much in getting these in as some systems. And these pins are brand new that we're putting in as well. And the originals had a Phillips head, so that's why I said it's quite nice. The ones that have come in the kit have this like Allen key slot, so we've got that in. And then we're just going to reposition the little handbrake mechanism, because that's dropped out, which it may do, but it helps you to sort of initially line things up. Right, so what we're also doing is putting a little bit of silicone grease. You see there's little recesses there, and also you've got one just up here for that shoe as well. Right, so what we're doing now is putting on the big spring at the bottom, which stretches across between the two, and then these have to line up, which it always sits a little bit funny at first while you're trying to get it all aligned, then it all seems to come together as you get it all together. Right, so we're going to put the adjuster in, and what we're doing is putting a little bit of silicone grease on that adjuster, and what we do is set that adjuster to almost the minimum setting, basically, so the shoes are in closely so the disc can, or the drum disc can turn as freely as possible, and then what you then go on to do is to adjust that once it's all back together. So again, it's a bit of a fiddly job getting this all in, but it's one of those things you seem to fiddle about and then it all comes together. So that's the little spring in, and you can see we've now got that in. It's a case of getting the shoe sort of positioned just about right so that you can get it all together, and once that's all together, then hopefully you can then put in the last holding pin on the other side. And that is both pins in. Now it's a case of readjusting the shoes so they sit in roughly the right position. Right, so that's the shoes roughly in position. As you see, hopefully we started with the handbrake lever mechanism. Then we got this first shoe on. We then got it fixed with the first pin. Of course, we put the silicone grease on the little lugs all the way around. We've got the big spring in next. Then we got the adjuster in, and we had that on the minimum adjuster, so that's the shoes in, so they're not going to drag on the drum disc brake. Got the little spring on then last of all that, and that's sort of the rough order we found seems to work. Isn't quite how even the manual says, but that works for us doing it in that order. And again, it's one of those things you'll probably find yourself a way that works for you. So just to let you see, we're on the driver's side, that we're now at the same stage as the passenger side. Right, the next thing is to put the hub back on for us. We put a little bit of silicone grease here, and also we put a little bit of silicone grease
for the thrust
on the hub there. So then what we're going to do is put the hub nut in. You've got that little or big washer that fits in that slot there. And then we're going to put the hub nut in. We've got new ones for that, and what we'll be doing is just tightening it up and then doing the torque setting and putting the stake back in a little bit later. Right, so as I said, we're just going to do that hub nut up to a nice tight position, but we'll then torque it up a little bit later on and put that stake back in so it can't come undone. Right, so we're just taking the wheel nuts out. We mainly had them in there so they didn't get lost, but also let us stand that up while we were painting it as well. But you need them out, of course, to get the new drum disc on and in position. And of course that has the little screw there that holds it on. We'll just put a little bit of Loctite on that as well. Right, so this is where if the drum won't go on, you've then got to slightly readjust the shoes to the drum will go on. As I said, they kind of find their own position once the drum is on. To get it on, you've got to get them in the positions that's going to let you do that. So as you see, we were adjusting the position of these to try and get the disc drum on. And what we found was the outer bit of the cable wasn't quite in, so we pulled the handbrake up a couple of clicks and it jumped back, and that's got things sitting even better than they were. So it is a case of manoeuvring them about and getting things just right. And then as you can see there, the drum disc has gone straight on. So it's another one of those things, if something's not overly easy, then there's probably something wrong there, because when it's right it should just go on, which it has done there. Right, so now all you need to do is just put in that little fixing screw, and of course that's got another nice little Allen key slot in it. Once that's in and right, of course your wheel nut hole should line up through the disc drum. Right, so what we've got to do now is get that adjuster set right, and as you can see on the picture, you can see that adjuster's there, but obviously in real life you cannot actually see that because you've now got the disc drum on. So what you have to do is line up one of these holes that the wheel nuts go through to line up exactly in line with the adjuster, then use a little screwdriver and slowly turn it up, and it'll wind those shoes out to the adjustments. That's what we're going to do next. It might be something you have to readjust, but we're initially doing it at the moment, and then you see how it goes once you've got it all back together. Right, so we've got this wheel nut hole lined up with the adjuster, and then it is just a case of then putting the screwdriver in and slowly adjusting the little wheel up. And because we've adjusted it to sort of its minimum set, it's quite a way, so I'm going to get on and do that until the drum disc brake cannot turn anymore, and then we'll start sorting out to get it then adjusted. I've now been adjusting that to this will not move, so as you can see it's now more or less like the handbrake is on, and then what we've got to do now is they'll unadjust it, so that'll be now going back the other way, 5 movements or 5 clicks, and that apparently is the basic adjustment. Then we'll have to apply the handbrakes and just check how things are going, but that's your initial adjustment, so I'm going to do that now. Right, so we've took it back 5 sort of clicks. I mean, it's a job to tell whether you're doing a full click. We ended up doing sort of almost 6, but it still could have been technically 5, and as you could see, that's now moving with a little bit of drag. We're now going to apply the handbrake a couple of times, let the brake settle and check it's still working the same, and that is your main way of adjusting it. There is an adjustment on the cable which you get to through the handbrake on this car, but we don't really want to touch that unless we have to, because it's mainly to take up any stretch in the cable. This is the main way of adjusting the handbrake, so that's what we're going to stick with, unless we have to necessarily use that other system to get it properly adjusted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, we've got one more.
It's probably 8 now.
Right, okay, let it off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's off.
Down a couple of times now. Don't count the click, just put it up and down a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you see, I pulled the handbrake up a couple of times. There's still a little bit of drag, but it's just slightly, probably too loose. We'll probably just got one little more click just to get it roughly right. And again, as we said, it may be a case you have to adjust it later on, but it'll be enough for us to initially use and check it's working all right. Right, so we've gone up another click or so, and it now seems roughly about right. What we'll do is check the other side, and then that should be it for now. So we've now done the other side, and things are looking fine. And one of the other advantages of doing it at this stage is the disc brakes aren't on, so there's no drag from them either. So we're hopefully getting as good a reading as you can initially get. Right, so we're now going to be putting the disc brake back on, or the disc caliper. So we're putting on the carrier first, and that's bolted on with those 2 bolts from the back, which I'll show you in just a minute. So we come around the back of the car, and hopefully you can see where the carrier attaches to the frame of the car with those 2 bolts, and we're just doing them up as always. We're doing them to the torque settings specified from the manual. Right, so the carrier's now on, and it's ready to get the caliper repair to go back on. In our kit we got the new guide pin rubbers, which is nice, because the old ones, they weren't bad, but they were clearly old and have been there a fair time, if not the life of the caliper. So it's nice to have these brand new ones. They've put a little bit of silicone grease on, and then it's a case of working them in. Right, and that's the guide pin rubbers in both sides. A little bit tight, but once they're in nicely. Right, so we're now going to put the shoes on. What we're doing is putting a little bit of silicone grease just around that bit of the piston, because often they go rusty in there. So hopefully that will sort of hold that back as long as possible. Right, so we've got the new shoes. We're only going to put one in. That's the one with the hook on the back that slots into the piston. Right, so now it's time to put the shoes in. We've got one sitting there already, and that's the one that clips into the piston. We're only going to put that one in initially, because what you have to do is turn the whole caliper as you put in the brake pipe into that end there, and this should just push in and stay in, whereas the other shoe has very little to hold it and a fall out. So once you've got the brake pipe in, then you can put the other shoe in and onto the disc. And that's it clicked in. Right, so now we've got to get the brake pipe back into the caliper, and this is one of the only awkward bits, because you have to more or less turn the whole caliper round to get it threaded in.
Yeah.
So give it an initial tighten now to make sure you've got your good positioning. You can see exactly what's happening. Then you can always just check once it's up in position. So once you've got the caliper through that bit of the suspension there, then it's time to put the other shoe on. Again, a little bit of silicone grease on each of those little edges. That's the caliper sitting roughly in place. Now it's time to put the sliding bolts in, or the sliding pins. Right, so now we're going to put some silicone grease on the pins, and what we're also doing is put a little bit of Loctite on as well, and we've done that to both of the pins. It's one of those things you want enough silicone grease on that they're not going to easily see. We don't want too much on that it's going to attract the dirt, so it's kind of getting that balance roughly right. And then hopefully you can roughly see as I come to the back where those sliding pins are going, one at the bottom there, and then we'll put the top one in just a minute. And that is the two sliding pins in. And as you can see, we're just checking that that is sliding and moving as it should do. Right, the nice thing is those little rubber guides in the kit even comes with these little caps that just go over and stop any dirt getting in. And we've even got one of the little red caps there to cover up the bleed nipple so no dirt gets into that either. Of course we'll be bleeding the brakes once we've got everything sorted out. Right, so the last thing to do is to just put this little clip on here, and again that we got I think we got that separately, that wasn't actually in the kit. We wanted to make sure everything was changed, and these seem to be readily available at the time of making this video, so we're able to change this clip as well. So you're just going to put the wheel nuts back in so they don't get lost and we know where they are. The only difference between this side and the other side is the other side has a little wire that goes in here, which if the brakes really wore down, which would have to be really worn down, the little light comes on in your dashboard. So what I'll do is I'll show you that now going on, just so we've covered that difference. Right, so we're now at the stage with the caliper on. The only difference to the driver's side to the passenger side that we're showing you is you've got this wire here that runs to the brake shoe, and basically that's for the little sensor that was to tell you if the shoe really did get worn down, and basically it slots into the shoe like that. I'm showing you it here because it'd be difficult to show you on the caliper, which is where we're going to do it. And basically that wire, you see the old one still intact, goes up under this plastic guard, and under there's a plug and a little clip on that plastic, and there's the plug there, and it's the same sort of plug they use for the ABS wiring and these sort of wires that give you a sense if the pads were to really sort of wear down. So we're going to put that on, then I'll just show it to you when it's on. So I just thought I'd show you where the plug is. If you come up underneath the car, and you'll recognise it from the carbon filter thing that's there. There's the spare wheel. You just see the edge of the plastic wheel arch, and up there is the plug, and as you can see we've removed it from that little clip, but that's where it clips in. So I just thought I'd show you up there where that is. Right, so that's the new plug in, and it is just a little bit on here, if you turn it round, that you push that little button there and pull it out, and now it's just a case of putting it back into that clip, and then we'll route the wire round and get it into the caliper. And just to show you, there's the other little clip that the wire's mounted onto under this plastic wheel protector. So then, as you can see, the wire then comes down, it goes through this little cap here, and very job to show you, it goes into the shoe there, just as hopefully I showed you better on that shoe out of the caliper. So I just thought we'd show you that, because that's the only difference on this side to the side we're mainly showing you. Right, so that is more or less the job done. The only thing still left to do, of course, is we will torque up the hub nut and stake it, and also we need to, of course, bleed the brakes, which I might do in a separate video. Of course, any little bits of paint that have been slightly marked we're touching as well, but for now that's more or less it. Actually, they're a nice set of brakes to do. We've quite enjoyed doing them, and it's certainly nice to see them all nice painted up and cleaned up. As always, it's not really a how-to guide, but just a visual chance for you to see roughly what's involved. If you were thinking of doing this job, we always recommend you use the manuals like we do, which is the Haynes manual, and the X-Part disc, which is a manual on a disc that you bring up on your computer, and of course watch other videos as well. As always, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check out our other videos, and don't forget to check out our Instagram and Twitter page as well. All the links on our channel.